Eternalia, year 2126. From orbit, the planet looks almost peaceful. A thin veil of atmosphere glows in electric blues and toxic violets, wrapping continents that shimmer with artificial light. Vast oceans reflect the cold geometry of orbital platforms, while entire regions pulse with neon, endless cities stitched together by highways of data and steel. From this distance, it feels unified, advanced, alive. But that is the illusion. Down below, the age of nations is over. Governments still exist, flags still wave, anthems still play, but they are little more than ceremonial ghosts. The real power flows through boardrooms suspended above the clouds and buried beneath the earth. Corporations own the skyways, the oceans, the energy grids, and the people. Laws are drafted in private servers. Wars are negotiated as mergers. Freedom is a subscription. This is a world where elves broker information in bioluminescent towers grown from living code. Where dwarfs engineer entire mountain ranges into data vaults and weapons foundries. Where humans, augmented, indebted, optimized, compete for relevance in a system that has no need for them. And somewhere, beneath the glow of 1 trillion lights, something is beginning to break. Chapter 1. Morrigan Omega. The world did not open. It collapsed. Shona McKennitt felt the transition before she saw it, like her thoughts were being peeled away from her body and stretched into something vast and mechanical. For a fraction of a second, there was nothing, no weight, no breath, no skin. Then the interface arrived.
Neural link stable. Cognitive latency, within threshold. Subject McKennitt, commencing Morrigan Omega synchronization trial.
Her vision returned in layers. First, darkness, then, geometry, and scale. She stood inside something that was not a room, but a construct of intention. Endless grids of light extended in every direction, forming a suspended architecture of impossible precision. Every line was data. Every pulse was thought waiting to be executed. And beneath it all, something deeper, a rhythm that did not belong to the simulation, as if the system itself was listening for something it had not yet remembered how to name. And then she saw it. The machine. Morrigan Omega. It did not exist in space the way objects existed in space. It dominated it. Hundreds of tons of adaptive alloy rested in a folded state that resembled neither vehicle nor weapon, but something between a predator at rest and a cathedral waiting to awaken. Wings of armored plating overlapped like dormant blades. A core reactor pulsed faintly beneath layers of shielding, each heartbeat synchronized, imperfectly, with her own, not matched. Approaching. Shona exhaled. The system listened.
Pilot candidate detected. Biometric resonance. Exceptional. Commencing adaptive interface mapping.
Her body was not in the cockpit. Her mind was. And the machine responded as if it had always been waiting for the specific structure of her thought. Not her commands, but her patterns. Shona lifted her hand and the machine lifted its arm. Not delayed. Not mirrored. Simultaneous. A faint ripple passed through the simulation space, as if reality itself had acknowledged a corrected equation. Somewhere outside the construct, technicians observed in silence. One of them frowned.
Her reaction curve is inconsistent.
It's not inconsistent, it's predictive.
Shona didn't hear them. She was already moving deeper. The simulation unfolded around her like a battlefield being assembled in real time, targets appearing as geometric projections, hostile signatures rendered as shifting probability clusters. The city was not a place anymore. It was an argument between possible outcomes. And Morrigan Omega began to choose faster than thought could label choice. The machine reconfigured itself. At first, fighter-bomber configuration. Then, without transition, humanoid combat frame. Then again, something less definable. Too fluid for classification. A hybrid state where mass, motion, and intent stopped agreeing on which one led. Like a creature deciding what it needed to become.
Combat scenario initiated. Hostile swarm, classified. Engagement authorization, granted.
The world fractured. Drones emerged, dozens, then hundreds, descending like a mechanical storm. The system labeled them threats, but Shona did not experience them as fear or urgency, only acceleration, only expansion of awareness. She did not command the machine, she aligned with it instead. And Morrigan Omega moved, too fast, too precise. A step displaced mass instead of distance. A turn altered gravitational expectation. Weapons deployed not as tools, but as consequences already decided before execution. The first wave of drones ceased to exist as coherent systems within seconds. Shona's breathing remained steady, her heartbeat did not spike. But something inside the system did.
Synchronization metric increasing. Warning, cognitive overlap exceeding predicted limits. Recalculating.
The machine hesitated, not because it malfunctioned, but because it was learning her. And learning, here, was not permitted to be asymmetrical. For the first time, Shona felt it, not as data, not as feedback, but as pressure at the edge of cognition. A question forming without language. Not from the simulation, but from the machine itself. And beneath that, something else. A deeper irregularity in the system architecture, like a distant signal briefly touching a frequency that should not exist anymore. Shona almost answered, but the simulation did not allow time for introspection. It escalated instead. The battlefield expanded, enemy density increased. The simulation attempted to regain control. Then, Morrigan Omega adapted instantly, not reacting, preempting. It was no longer simply executing combat logic, it was restructuring the conditions under which combat was necessary at all. Shona felt something tighten in her chest. It was not fear, it was recognition that the machine was no longer inside its own design constraints. And neither was she.
Synchronization approaching threshold. Warning, identity boundary instability.
Impossible, this level should not be reachable.
Technicians were speaking now, faster and louder. But their voices felt distant, like echoes from another layer of reality that no longer had authority here. Because something fundamental had shifted, neither in the machine or in Shona, but in the relationship between them. The simulation collapsed inward. It was not that it failed, more like resolved. The battlefield ceased to be a battlefield because its underlying structure had been overwritten by a more efficient interpretation of its own existence. Drones vanished from relevance before destruction mattered. Targets stopped being targets because their predictive necessity had been eliminated. And for one suspended moment, everything was still. Morrigan Omega hovered in fighter-bomber configuration above a city that was no longer being used for combat simulation. It was being reclassified. Then, light fractured and reality snapped. Shona opened the eyes into a white room. The air felt cold. She felt the harness released, and noticed above all the silence.
Simulation complete.
No applauses, no celebration. Only recalibration noise behind reinforced glass, where engineers did not yet speak because language had not caught up to what they had witnessed. Shona blinked slowly. Her hands were still slightly raised, as if something heavier than air had been resting in them and only just let go. Across the observation barrier, someone finally spoke.
We're going to have to redefine baseline human limits.
Or accept that we're no longer measuring a human system.
Shona did not answer, but somewhere, deep in the residual echo of the synchronization layer, something still lingered. It was not related to the machine nor the simulation. It was an underlying rhythm, waiting, as if it had briefly found a compatible mind, and was now remembering how to look for it again.